So I'm going to do a reaction video to Andrew and Tristan Tate spewing their nonsense about the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
Professional, because I've been genuinely upset by the lack of professionalism that I have seen on the Twitter timeline as of late, especially regarding the Palestine-Israel war.
Yeah, I get
The lack of professionalism coming from human traffickers, pimps, and pedophiles. That's pretty funny. And if you looked at the evidence, that's exactly what they are. You know, Andrew Tate has went on Twitter and compared himself to Jeffrey Epstein. And Tristan Tate has tweeted support for men sleeping with 15-year-old girls, but they're all about professionalism.
I guess that's the first topic that everyone's asking us to speak about.
So let's talk about it.
And a lot of people are interested in my opinion because
Everybody's interested in Tristan's opinion. He looks drunk right now. And you know, these guys always talk about self-control. They smoke like fiends. Tristan's drunk all the time, and they can't make it a day without sleeping with at least 3 to 5 different women. But they're all about self-control. So let's hear the nonsense.
I have been caught giving tens of thousands of dollars to the Palestinian people, mainly Palestinian children, Palestinian schools, people who will be casualties of this war. And I'd like to explain myself, not that I owe anyone an explanation as to who and where I put my money. It's my money. But second of all, as a Christian...
Oh, it's his money? No, it's the money that he made off scamming people in the real world and the war room, and made it off the backs of confused young women that were manipulated to work on webcam. He didn't earn a penny, but it's his money.
I would like to explain why I'm donating so much money.
I'm donating so
for
much
infrastructure,
money for infrastructure,
food, and education.
He's James
in Palestine.
Bond.
First and foremost, those idiots who say that's not real charity because the money's taken by Hamas. And one, I own the charity. I know where the money goes. It's my charity. I know where the money goes, and I only work with trusted people. One, first and foremost. Two, I guess the only real point I have to make besides it's my money, don't ask me questions, is as follows. This war, there's been civilians killed on both sides. There are civilians killed on both sides, and I detest the killing of any civilian, as do most men of God, any civilian on either side. But the fact of the matter, the simple fact of the matter is this. When the fighting ends, if the fighting ends, there will still be Israeli children and there will be Palestinian children.
Oh, Tristan's all about the children unless you have a 15-year-old daughter and you're working a shitty job and making $9 an hour, and he comes on the door at your door and he tries to human traffic her because, you know, he said this point blank on video. It's on YouTube that he could never recruit a girl. First, he said, I've recruited more young women into the sex industry than any man alive, and that he could never recruit a girl from a rich family, that he has to always recruit girls that come from poor families whose dads make $9 an hour and work shitty jobs because somebody has to buy them their Gucci pocketbooks. But he's all about the children. But make sure it's not a 15-year-old girl, because then he'd either want to sleep with them or human traffic them.
Israeli children will have access to education. Israeli children will have running water. Israeli children will have food in their stomachs. With all the might and money that Israel has and all the support it has from around the world, places like the United States. Whereas when this war is over, or if the fighting dies down, there will be Palestinian children who will not have access to education, who will not have access to clean drinking water, who will not have access to food. So I've decided to donate money to help those children out.
Well, I got one question for you, Tristan. Before this conflict started, Palestinian children had all the things that you just mentioned that they don't have now, and the conflict was started by Palestinians. Then maybe Palestinians shouldn't have broke down the border and started beheading Israeli children and massacring people, you know, at a party. So maybe if they would have made better decisions, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. But we all know it's hard for you, Andrew and Tristan, to take responsibility for anything. So why would you, you know, expect anybody else to either? Because you haven't taken responsibility for any of the crimes that you've clearly committed. You know, you scream up and down every day that you've committed no crimes. Well, that's a good one, because there's about 2,000 pages worth of evidence that says that you have.
The very same way that regardless of what your opinions are on the Russia-Ukraine war, and everyone knows my opinions, I still, despite my dislike of the Ukrainian government and the money given to its regime, and despite my understanding of why the war actually happened, I went up to the border loads of times with food and coats and clothes because women and kids were being displaced, and women and kids were coming.
Now, you know what the Tates do? They try to mask their criminal activity. It's like when John Gotti would hand out turkeys on Thanksgiving. Wait, so for 364 days out of the year, I committed crime. I've killed people. I've murdered people. I've shaken people down. I've dealt drugs. But this one day out of the year, I'm going to hand out turkeys. That's what Andrew and Tristan Tate do. They human traffic. They pimp. They're pedophiles. But since they, one day out of the year they brought coats and food to, children, all of a sudden now they're saints.
Across the border to Romania, so the women and kids needed my help. And I don't care if a child is a Hindu, a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, or an atheist. If anywhere in the world there are children in lack of food, water, clean clothes, education, where possible, there will be Tristan Tate and his money. And don't tell me what.
But don't let those children be, 13 to 15-year-old girls, because then the Tates would try to, capitalize off them and human traffic them and have sex with them, because they have tweeted this before. They have tweeted support for, they've made videos where they say that there's nothing wrong with grown men sleeping with 14 and 15-year-old girls. You can look up the videos yourself. So make sure the kids that he's referring to, make sure it's not teenage girls.
To send my cash. Understand? That's all I really have to say on the topic. Because I'm sick of people on Twitter talking to me.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk as professionals. And as a professional, even though I am seen as a beacon of intellect and knowledge, quite rightly, I'm also professional enough to understand when I don't understand everything.
Yeah.
And the Middle East is an extremely complicated topic. Now, I understand the basics. I understand the 1967 borders. I understand the religious divides. I understand the holy sites. I understand there's some very interesting information about a pipeline which was tried to run through Syria, and they destabilized Syria on purpose to try and control oil and energy, like it's always been about, because the world is always about money and power. I understand all of these things. But do I feel like I understand the entire conflict at a deep enough level?
Prior to Palestine attacking Israel in the terrorist attack, Hamas, I should say, it was pretty stable over there. People were eating, people were surviving, people were going about their daily life. But leave it to the Tates to spin it certain things, bring up other stuff that has nothing to do with the actual situation to mask who they're trying to cover for. That's all they do is manipulate. But he's so professional, sitting there in his bathrobe, smoking whatever the hell he's smoking. But he's just so professional, right?
Level to have a true, strong path towards peace. Do I understand every faction? Do I understand the differences between them all? Do I understand life on the ground? No. So let's talk in certainties. As a professional, I talk in certainties. It is certain that civilians...
Professional what? Professional pimp? Professional human trafficker? Professional ex-drug dealer? Professional pedophile? What are you a professional at? Because I'm really curious. I mean, in your delusional mind, you're a professional. Do you think you're Ben Shapiro? I'm confused.
Will die. It is certain that children will starve. It is certain that there are people who know more than us behind the shadows.
Oh, you think? You think there's people that know more than you two idiots?
Certain actions with very little regard for human life.
As always.
As always. It is certain that it is a chessboard, just like we have right here. And any capable chess player is prepared for a pawn to die if it allows them to win the game. That's what I do when I...
Kind of like what he thinks about all the people that join the real world in the war room, just pawns in the Tate's chess game so they can get your $50 a month to live their extravagant lifestyle, or get the $5,000 to join the war room, and then they leave you open the door and they just leave you there standing by yourself, But everybody's a pawn in the Tate's chess game.
I play chess, so the people who are in charge of the world do. It is also pretty clear to me that when anybody is instantly and absolutely galvanized into encouraging the genocide of any other nation or peoples, they have fallen deeply into a psyop. So when we look at the right-wing American...
So this idiot is saying that this conflict is a psyop. You know, typical delusional Tate. Maybe you should give Hamas a call and tell them don't attack innocent Israeli civilians, women, children that are being massacred, raped. But they're just these two idiots. And that's, you know what? Prison can't come soon enough for these two delusional idiots. And too bad they can't serve their time in an American prison when they would have to walk a maximum security yard as sex offenders. Because I'll tell you, Andrew and Tristan Tate's, arrogant attitude would go over real well. They wouldn't make it a day on the yard.
Free thinkers. Let's look at our friend, Mr. Peterson, who's not a fan of ours. And I look forward to speaking to him one day. But when he says, give them hell, Netanyahu, give them hell, you are trying to advocate the genocide of millions of people.
Pawns who do not move pieces on the chessboard.
Here we go. These two idiots think that they're smarter than Jordan Peterson. You know why they're mad at Jordan Peterson? Because Jordan Peterson has millions of followers, and he's telling the truth what the Tates are, that they're scam artists, that they're con men, that they're human traffickers, pimps, and pedophiles, and the Tates don't like that. So what do the low-life Tates do? They start attacking Jordan Peterson's daughter. They start mocking him because they're trying to control public perception of them before trial, and they're furious that Jordan Peterson is coming out right now before their trial, telling people the truth, what they really are.
They have no power.
Innocent people who are just trying to go about and live their lives.
Typical Tate spin. Let's try to villainize Jordan Peterson to make everybody turn against them because they're mad that they're being called out for their criminal behavior. Two scumbags.
Somebody else has made a move on a board.
Is that fair to the person who gets bombed?
Oh, they're all about fairness.
No.
Was it fair that you locked up those girls in a webcam studio and made them work 13 hours a day and handed them $11 an hour? Was that fair? Was it fair when the girl escaped and ran to the Romanian police only to have her driven back by the police back to your house? Was that fair? Was it fair when Andrew Tate compared himself to Jeffrey Epstein and supported grown men having sex with 15-year-old girls and 14-year-old girls? Is that fair?
Same on the other side. The average Israeli, the average person who's living in a border town who gets shot, pawns on the chessboard. I'm smart enough to look at this situation and understand what's really happening, which is that I don't know, and none of the people with strong opinions truly know.
You don't know what happened, Andrew? You don't know what happened? Hamas broke the barrier, the wall down by land, by sea, and by air, broke the border down, killed over 1,000 innocent people, decided to rape women, and decided to cut babies' heads off. That's what happened, you effing idiot.
I'm not going to lie. I do find it extremely suspicious that the most feared intelligence agency on Earth didn't manage to detect an invasion
on the 50th anniversary of another famous invasion.
It does seem a bit weird. Like,
these two scumbags are trying to insinuate that the Israeli intelligence let this happen. They're the two biggest pieces of shit on the planet. Yeah, the Israeli government let their women and children be slaughtered and raped, and to set a certain narrative. Jail can't come soon enough for these two pieces of shit.
I'm sure if you were to take a remote control car, which could be a drone or a bomb, and try and drive it towards an Israeli checkpoint or the border, they would detect it and destroy it. But now we've had 500 pickup trucks full of dudes just burst over the border. That's weird. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm highlighting that it's very strange.
He's not a conspiracy theorist? Really? He calls his prosecution the Matrix, but he's not a conspiracy theorist? There's over 2,000 or 3,000 pages of evidence that these two are guilty, but he's not a conspiracy theorist. Let that sink in.
Now, once again, let's go back to my original assumptions. Let's say that it's a big chess game. And let's say a gap has been left. pawn has been left to hang so that when it dies, you can foil your opponent. Very common in chess. Makes more sense to me than the fact that Mossad failed to detect an entire invasion. I don't know. Let's also talk uncertainties. War, destruction, and uncertainty always leads to stricter controls from the regime. Always.
Here he goes.
Always.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but here we go.
Sorry, they take away your, let me apologize. Freedom? They always come along and take away your freedom to guarantee your safety. So perhaps, and we don't have to look at Palestine, Israel. We don't have to look at Ukraine, Russia. We can look anywhere. If a regime wanted more power over its citizens, the easiest way to do that would be to orchestrate an unsafe environment purposefully. They would purposefully make sure the society was not safe so they could come along with the solution.
This effing idiot is trying to insinuate that the Israeli intelligence allowed this to happen so they can have stricter control over its citizens. You know what, Andrew and Tristan? You need to shut the fuck up. 2 pieces of garbage.
Society sick so you can give it the medicine. I'm only talking uncertainties. These are all certain facts
Here we go.
that I know. And when you add all these things up and then you start to look at nearly any conflict on Earth, you become pretty anti-war. And I find it extremely asinine and quite childish, hypocritical, and also disingenuous that people like Peterson will call for the genocide and call for war when truthfully, he would hate to be anywhere near a war.
Here, they're trying to demonize Jordan Peterson because they're mad before their trial that, Jordan Peterson's telling the truth, what they are, pimps, human traffickers, pedophiles. So they're mad about it. So let's demonize him to try to turn. All they do is try to manipulate. They're 2 scumbags, both of them. They're just scumbags. They don't know any. They should just shut the fuck up. That's what they should do.
Jordan Peterson is not a soldier, and he's not capable of being a soldier.
Here he goes.
For him to sit and try and advocate destruction.
Because Andrew Tate would be a soldier. Andrew Tate could never be a soldier. You know why? Because it's all about Andrew Tate, and that's it. That's the only person that this sociopath cares about is himself. So to sit there and say that Jordan Peterson couldn't be a soldier, but he could, him and his arrogant piece of shit brother, is a total joke.
And he himself can't handle Twitter haters and needs absolute peace of mind, let alone peace of physicality, to sleep at night without drugs. I find that quite disingenuous. I also find it very short-sighted. So when I see all these people choosing sides, calling for the absolute destruction of the other, saying this team's completely wrong, that team's completely wrong, to me, it's all just a huge psyop. Because let me tell you something about the world. Only in movies is there a good guy and a bad guy. You could sit here and display to me an extremely concise, compendious, and compelling argument that Israel are the good guys.
Him and his big
and
words.
that
Right.
Hamas/Palestine/Gaza, whatever, are committing war crimes and doing bad things. You could also do the absolute same thing in reverse.
Yes.
There are no good guys and bad guys. It's gray. It's not black and white. It's a mess. And how that mess is solved, I don't know enough about the conflict to answer. What I do know is that children will starve and that we can try our best to stop that happening.
Here we go. The Tates are all about the kids. Except for if you have teenage daughters.
I'm going to do my best
you better
to
hide
stop
the
as
kids.
many children from going hungry as possible. That's my political view. Andrew's political view on the war is he doesn't want children to be hungry.
Yeah.
Andrew's political views are this. He doesn't want to go to prison, so he's really trying to, create a positive image for himself because there's pounds and pounds of evidence against these 2 lowlifes. So let's try to demonize Jordan Peterson. Let's try to make ourselves look good that we're all about the children, which we know that's a lie. Let him continue.
That is it. And I think anyone else who comes along with such short-sighted, infantile blanket statements doesn't understand the world enough and doesn't understand conflict.
Yeah,
or
only
violence
Andrew knows
to
the
understand
world.
why all this is happening and doesn't understand global politics enough to understand that if it allows...
Andrew understands the world because he gives classes on how to pimp hoes and, he pimping 101, and he's just written so many amazing books that are going to go down in the history of the world of, how to pimp. But he just understands the world better than anybody.
Allows you to win the game with checkmate, you'll sacrifice a pawn. You will sacrifice soldiers. You'll sacrifice people in a border town. You'll sacrifice people in a pickup truck. You'll sacrifice them if it's for the good of the game. They may not know what's going on.
Kind of like how he sacrifices all the young people that join the war room in real world with the $50 a month. Just sacrifices to the Tate's lifestyle. They could care less about any of you. So stop giving. How did these two idiots get rich? They have no skill set. You know how they got rich? Convincing you that they have the answer to all of your problems, and by you giving them your money. That's how they got rich.
Certain people do. And I think a lot of people need to actually sit here and critically analyze.
Oh, here we go.
And another thing I'm going to say to all the people at home.
Keep in mind, this is a part of the world that hasn't seen peace and stability for over 1,000 years. 1,000 years.
Right?
So let's start.
Hopefully you get 1,000 years in
from
prison, so we don't have to
Israel,
hear your mouth
Palestine.
anymore.
I want everyone at home to understand the only people who advocate violence are people who are not particularly familiar with violence.
Agreed.
You'll notice professional fighters try very hard not to get in street fights. We know how ugly true violence is. And there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, war, yeah, violence. If it came to your doorstep, you would be begging for peace. If your children weren't safe in their homes, you would be begging for peace. If 1,000 men with guns were on the back of pickup trucks driving towards your house.
Doesn't the holier than thou routine get old with the Tates, that they just, they're just above everything? How they thumb their nose at everybody and everything. Everything is beneath them. But again, they're human traffickers, pimps, pedophiles, ex-drug dealers, and they just thumb their nose at all that. They criticize any man that looks at porn, and they criticize men who gamble, and they criticize men who use drugs. Meanwhile, they sell drugs. Meanwhile, they used to have a casino that was closed down, and the reason why their casino was closed down, because when people would finally win, the employees there would rob them. Seems like the Tates. But the Tates, they thumb their noses at all these vices in life, but they supply the vices. Tate 101.
Even if their ideology was the same as yours, you would still be begging for peace. You can't guarantee not one of them is crazy. You can't guarantee you can convince that mob that you're on their team before they pull the trigger. You want peace. We all want peace. None of us want war. We may want war when it's somewhere else. We may want war for theaters and theatrics and ideologies. I think war is funny to look at on Twitter. But when it comes to you, if it came anywhere near you, you would run like as fast as...
I love how he thinks that he knows every person's, DNA or makeup. That if war came to any of us, we would run. I don't know what delusional ecstasy pills you ate, or, you and Tristan's, what you do behind closed doors that makes you so delusional. Maybe you're talking about you and your family, a bunch of cowards that you would run, but I know plenty of people that if war came to them, they would stand their ground. So you need to shut the fuck up.
As you could and beg for peace. And I think there's a lot of people at home who don't have enough brain to understand that anything other than the very fragile peace we uphold within our societies is disgusting, and you would never truly want to experience it. And I feel sorry for people on all sides of the conflict.